so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the pea heads themselves. I am your pea head enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head's social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to this show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge, huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special Pea Head Posse episode hosted by me, Alexa Hauser, where we feature you, the amazing listeners of this podcast, and hear your story, find out how you came to be a part of the amazing collective that is the Pea Head audience, and learn about what you're doing, what you're making and creating with this wealth of information Brandon puts out into the universe 5 days a week. Today, our guest is Positive Head listener Beth Ward. Beth is a Reiki master, intuitive healer, shamanic energy medicine practitioner, teacher, and holistic life guide whose near-death experience put her on a path to discover her inner soul fire. Hi, Beth. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I understand it's also your birthday today. Happy birthday.
It is. Thank you so much. Wonderful birthday present.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we could take the time to do this. You reached out in response to the Facebook post and shared your story with me, and I thought it was really inspiring and really fascinating. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself, just your background and maybe if you want to dip into that story that you were sharing.
Okay. Well, I've always been a spiritual seeker since I came out of the womb, pretty much. I was just sort of born that way. But I was my parents' strange child who was always pointing up to the stars, the Pleiades in particular, and the weird kid who spent all of her time down in the woods on the mountain where I grew up, talking to trees and fairies and streams. So, I never heard words like alternative or holistic medicine until I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And I got a job at a local chiropractor's office, and his wife was a massage therapist. And the minute she laid her hands on me, I had this big, huge epiphany, and it was like, wow, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. This is it. I'm supposed to be a healer. So, excuse me, early on, I had a short marriage and, kind of one of those things where I married young and, it didn't last that long. But after my divorce, I took the big plunge and decided to go to massage school. And I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. Excuse me. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. I didn't know anyone. I barely even left the small town that I grew up in. So, I never looked back. And over the years, I've worked in, world-class spas. I worked in private practices. I opened my own day spa, and I even had a massage school of my own. And then, bam, suddenly an illness took it all away. I was on life support for 2 weeks and in a coma for 5 days. And it took about 8 months of rehab just to get to where I could walk on my own again and not have to get around by wheelchair or walker. I had to have a lot of speech therapy because they left me on the ventilator for too long and things like that. But during my coma, I had a near-death experience that shifted my whole perception of reality. And that was 5 years and 3 weeks ago. So I spent the past 5 years working towards recovery, and I've been on this path of learning it all I can to heal myself from the inside out. Just expanding self-healing and self-love, and trying to get back to that feeling of perfect peace and wholeness and oneness, and all of the beautiful things that I experienced in the near-death experience, which I can elaborate on later if you would like. And a large part of self-healing for me was furthering my exploration of alternative medicine, and energy medicine has called to me in a really big way. And it's always kind of been a joke for the last few years that it's been my full-time job now. It's like the universe said, okay, it's your full-time job. So for the next 5 years, you're going to, this is what you're going to do. So, but in my viewpoint, I've been blessed at a second chance at life. And all this research, I came across the Positive Head podcast several months ago. And I can't remember exactly how I found it, but I've been listening almost every night before I go to bed. And I'm working my way through listening every one, slowly but surely. So
I'm sure Brandon appreciates that.
Oh, yeah. Love Brandon.
Well, that was going to be my next question, how you found the podcast. But it seems that everyone kind of finds it in their own way, right? When they're in a situation where they just need that positivity, we all kind of have, been attracted to it.
Oh, absolutely.
But going back to, your near-death experience, which, sounds like it really turned your whole life around. So what was happening with that when you were in a coma? Mm-hmm. What was your experience like? What were you experiencing?
Well, I'm actually really happy to have an opportunity to talk about it, because in the area where I live, not very many people would even understand it because maybe it doesn't line up necessarily with what they believe, or, who knows what the reasons are. Just I have felt that that sort of fear, I guess, of telling my story, because it really is different. I mean, it didn't exactly line up with my own beliefs at the time, so it took me a while to even process it. And, and then too, when I got out of the hospital, I was a little preoccupied dealing with problems at hand, like, will I die tomorrow? And, will I wake up breathing the next day? And, will I have to go back to the hospital for some reason? Because those things were, really real concerns when I first woke up out of the coma, and even after, I got sent home some weeks later. But the language that we have, that's the other problem, is that the language we have to really describe this sort of thing is grossly insufficient at best,
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating trying to talk about something that, in a way, it's hard for the human mind to even understand it in the first place, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
So I was in what I now refer to as the dazzling darkness or void, but it's neither of those things. It's resoundingly perfect love, joy, and peace. I would even call it, the way that I've best been able to refer to that feeling is spiritual ecstasy. And so during the near-death experience, it wasn't, for me, in the presence of the source, it wasn't emotionally and physically overwhelming. And I can only assume that was because my essence, or whatever you want to call it, was not in my body with all the human baggage that we carry. So, but that's not to say that I wasn't awestruck.
Right.
I was sheer and profound peace because I had returned to the presence of that source. The main difference I notice is when I enter this brilliance through meditation, it very much affects me emotionally and sometimes physically because of the overspill. And so I go from my deepest pit of despair, feelings like, I don't know, just imagine whatever that is for you, being the lowest of low, and then go into meditation and the times when I can tap back into that, it's so polar opposite. I just go from feeling in that pit of despair to feeling like I just want to shout in extreme bliss and in a split second. It's very intense. So,
Wow.
I'm not saying that's a negative thing. It's wonderful. It's just a difference in observation and, more evidence of the sum total we humans experience of the mind's workings, of labels that we come up with, judgments and labels for things. And then, our experience of positive, neutral, and negative and cause and effect in the human body and this 3D reality that we live in. But, I kept looking for near-death experiences like mine. In all my research, I kept looking up other people's experiences because I thought, mine's so different. I didn't see, the tunnel. I didn't go through a tunnel, and I didn't see, this great big light. I didn't see relatives,
Right.
And so I came across this author by the name of John Wren Lewis. And he was a mathematical physicist and humanist psychologist prior to his near-death experience. And he's probably the most atheist of people you could ever meet, frankly, before he had his experience. And he used the term the dazzling darkness. And when I found that, I found it to be so perfectly spot on with my own experience. I was like, yes, finally a phrase to describe this infinite, eternal consciousness that I've been able to experience. And specifically, I found a quote that he said, and I wanted to share it because it sums it up so beautifully. So he says, "It was as if I'd emerged freshly made, complete with all the memories that constitute my personal identity, from a vast blackness that was somehow a radiant, a kind of infinitely concentrated aliveness or pure consciousness that had no separation within it, and therefore no time or space. There was absolutely no sense of personal continuity. In fact, the sense of a stop in time was so absolute that I'm now convinced, and if my conviction is correct, it actually counts against rather than for the claim so often made by near-death researchers that personal consciousness can exist apart from the brain. My impression is that my personal consciousness was actually snuffed out, the root meaning, according to some scholars, of the word nirvana, and then reacted by kind of focusing down from the infinite eternity of that radiant, dark, pure consciousness. An old nursery rhyme conveys it better than any high philosophy. Where did you come from, baby dear? Out of everywhere into here." And so that quote just really resonated with me.
I love that. You're such a good storyteller. You have such a beautiful voice when you read that.
Thank you.
Wow, that's really. So is that what because that was going to be my next question. Are you saying, did you not experience time?
No.
Like, what was your perception of what was happening to you? Were you aware that you were in a coma and you were back with Source? And like, what was that?
I thought I was gone from this existence.
Okay.
I thought, well, here I am,
Right.
but there was no actual communication going on, but what I experienced, I guess is really the only word I know how to use, is sort of a telepathic type of a communication and a knowing. It was just a knowing that this wasn't it for me, that I was experiencing it for a reason, but I had to come back, and that I had a purpose, and it was just kind of a knowing, and it was sort of like a telepathic type of communication from this great
Right.
source, and it's like, well, you have to go back. And I really didn't understand what that was. And in a lot of ways, I was kind of angry when I was back into this human body. I was kind of like, really? I don't want to be here. I want to go back.
Yeah. So, was there any understanding of why you were coming back?
Not at that point, no. Well, I mean, yeah, as far as like what my purpose was going to be, I really didn't understand what it was. I just had the understanding that it was something far greater than what I was experiencing at that moment, and that is all that exists anyway, and that we will be returning back to that. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you eventually did come back and you did recover, were you still angry, like you said, or did you have this newfound sense of, like you said, like a newfound purpose?
Well, at first, like I said, I didn't really know what to do with it, the experience. I mean, it was there, and I felt this, my heart chakra was opened like it had never been before. But at the same time, going back into this human existence, I was dealing with, disability. I was dealing with, not being able to speak. I was just dealing with so much physical heaviness, so much, so It was hard to kind of sledge through all that. And so I did know, I knew that for me, this challenge was going to mean that first and foremost, my first order of business was going to be, get myself on a path to healing, figure out how to heal, all the things that were wrong with me, or whatever word you want to use, what is broken inside of me that I need to heal and that I need to fix. But I knew that was not just the physical aspect. I mean, even though that was ginormous, I knew that it was my mind, my soul, my spirit. I knew it had to come down to all of that and healing all of that. And so that's when I really realized that, once I did find myself on this path to healing, and I was able to walk and, go down this path, that eventually I would get to where I would help people again. Because, I spent 22 years in a massage practice prior to getting ill. So to me, I was already sort of a healer, and I loved helping people, and that was my purpose. But I really feel like the near-death experience served as a major attention getter. Like, okay, you're getting out of focus. Let's put you right back in focus,
Well, and how would you say you were out of, if you don't mind sharing, like, how would you say that you were so out of focus? Because just from someone, listening to this, just from the way you're describing it on the outside, it's like, well, you were helping people, you were a massage therapist, like you were already kind of in the realm of soothing, one could say. And like, to me, like being soothed and soothing others, like that's my perception of like when you're in alignment, when you're able to do that. So why do you think that you attracted this near-death experience? I guess is my question. Like what was there something that you had been ignoring about, like some piece of resistance that like you feel this needed to happen to get your attention, or what would you say the difference is there? Like what was
yeah, I think
do you get what I'm saying?
For me, I was, I'd always, since I started, massage school, I'd been surrounded with all these people who, lived a really healthy lifestyle and holistic lifestyle. And, when they couldn't eat healthy, they were taking the right supplements and all this other thing. So I really got into that too, being in that field. And so for many years, I thought that I was taking really good care of myself. One of the things that I didn't pay attention to was the real core of my own health. And so there was many times I was just taking way too much of a supplement, and, there was a lot of things about my lifestyle that were just really unhealthy. And I think that, having a congenital defect in my liver was, part of it, but we didn't know that I had that problem. So to me, I sort of feel like, because I've been through a lot in my life, I've had several rearranging events, big traumas in my life from the time I was a young child all the way up until now. So, if I look at things from the grand picture, the big picture of my life, I have to say that everything that has happened to me has happened for a reason. And that one big thing had to happen in order to get me where I needed to be, because I was, I thought I was lined up with Source, and I thought that I was, in the healing arts and helping people. But the thing that I was not doing was loving myself. And I really think that was one of the things that I had to learn, because I'm sure you're well aware that until we learn how to really love and take care of ourselves, we really don't know how to love and take care of other people. And sometimes that's the opposite of what we are taught growing up, by elders and people around us. So you take care of everybody else first. So, I think that was one of the biggest things with that.
You just saying that, it just really struck a chord with me, because the way that I found this podcast was I was really not loving myself, at all. And I was into health and stuff as well. I mean, I liked, I worked out a lot. I tried to eat healthy, but mentally, I didn't even realize how much I talked to myself in a very negative way. And I really didn't love myself, or think it was very important. In fact, I think I thought it was, kind of I was doing my duty by telling myself I should be better, or I wasn't doing good enough, or whatever. And anyway, I ended up in the emergency room twice in a 6-week period, because my face, this is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. My left side of my face swole up so big that it started closing off my airway. And, and it was totally bizarre, because we went into the emergency room and they were like, we have no idea, take this antibiotic. And the first time I was like, okay, I ate something wrong or something like that. And the second time I was like, no, this is something else. And that's when I found the podcast. And when I started, I had this knowing, I need to start meditating. I need to start, so it really is interesting how, just when you said that you weren't loving yourself, I was like, that is the key, isn't it? Because, our inner being, Source, loves us. And so if we don't love ourselves, that's almost the worst thing we can do for our own personal, energy and being, right? Because that's the opposite.
It really interferes with our own ability to connect in with that higher consciousness and, receive a download, so to speak, that we need to, permeate the people around us and even our own selves with that, that great love. I don't even know what else to call it. And it really helps us stay focused on what we need to do. And, I don't know if you get in the same ruts that I get into, but if I don't spend that time on me, I will get away from meditation. I will get away from doing the things that I know that are healthy for me to do, like stay in ceremony and things like that. And then before you know it, here I am, feeling down and depressed, and, and then I have to go back and get right, so to speak, and it's I don't ever want that to become a burden and be like, oh, gotta go meditate today. That's the worst. Who wants that?
It's the tagline of this show, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain your vibration, and it's a practice. It's a practice. Do you think, after your near-death experience, do you think that they're actually good things? A lot of people would say a near-death experience is, some people might take it the completely opposite way, but from everything I've read about near-death experiences and heard, it seems like it's kind of a beautiful blessing in a way to be able to feel that other side and see the bigger picture,
Yeah. And the clouds started breaking up, and I could see a light at the end of the tunnel of my own healing, meaning, hey, maybe I'm not going to die in the next few years. Right. And I was really able to start integrating this experience into my own life. And for me, that meant a lot of different things. I started, taking more energy healing classes and expanding on what I already knew. It's been what I would consider the biggest blessing, because who gets to experience that? I mean, I still feel that way. I'm like, when I think about it, I have so much happiness and so much joy. And, that's why I was talking about, when I was in the experience, I didn't have this effect of I was, overjoyed, but it didn't affect me physically like the way it is right now. I feel like I could just go through my house and scream to the top of my lungs because I know it's there and I've been a part of it. And I can't think of a better feeling at all. So, yeah, I went through a lot of stuff. It's not good. It's not really good to think about and remember all of the, things that was going on when I came back into my body. But you know what?
Yeah.
It was worth it. It was so worth it, because I wouldn't be who I am now without that experience. Just like I wouldn't be who I am now without any of the other experiences in my life that were traumas, and wounds, which we all have. So,
yeah, contrast is the best teacher and the best tool to help us focus, right, on who we really are and who we really want to become. And definitely, and I think the biggest part of having a spiritual practice or living this type of lifestyle is understanding that about the contrast, because at first when we experience any type of contrast, we're like, oh no, I messed up or something like that. And now it's or at least I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I know my contrast, I have never had a near-death experience, so my contrast isn't at that level of intensity, but any contrast I do experience, whatever the intensity, I now am at the point where I'm like, wow, this is awesome, because this is letting me know so strongly what I do not want, therefore I know what I do want, and that's an awesome thing, to know what you want and to know what your direction forward is.
And it makes me so happy to hear, because, there's a lot of people that they'll encounter that challenge or that contrast, no matter how great or small. And the saying is very true. You choose to get better or get better. And, I'm happy we're in the camp that's we chose to get better, and we chose to learn from the experience and to take it for the beautiful gift that it is, because one of the things that I've learned, just over the last few years, is that there is no trauma, there is no, nothing that you will go through that's a contrast to what you want that you would consider, even from the smallest disappointment all the way up to the greatest betrayal. There are always beautiful gifts to be found within that. You just have to look for them. The treasures are there.
Yeah. Just like Brandon always says, behind every lump of coal is a diamond, and exactly. You just started mentioning before a couple of the things that you started getting into after, you were rehabilitated, right? After you started, after you came out of the coma and everything. So what are you working on now? What are some of those things that you were led to dive into after?
Well, I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this specifically, but I thought I had lost my ability to do anything. My massage career was gone. My license expired while I was in the hospital. I was a teacher. I taught CEUs, and I always loved being a teacher. Like I said, at the time, I had been doing that for 11 years at that point. But I realized that I was sent back with this new purpose. So I spent the first couple of years trying to make sense of it and coming to terms with the prognosis that I was giving, which was less than 20% chance of living 2 years without a liver transplant. Yeah. So my first order of business, of course, like I said, was to rebuild my life from the ground up. And I already felt that I've done this a few times in this lifetime alone, after the death of my brother at 12, and then later, going through the divorce I mentioned in my early 20s, and even, the loss of a business in 2009 that I just poured my heart and soul into. And then the massage school, I had just a few months prior to falling ill. So So here I was yet again, only this time I had to rebuild a new body and my health. So I started doing all this research, and going forward with that also meant putting together pieces of a puzzle for me. So I had this great big tapestry of all this experience I had when I quote unquote crossed over, and I realized that it had to mean healing on all levels. I think I mentioned body, mind, soul, and spirit. So I didn't know right away what that was, except I knew that I had to somehow be of service to other people in their own healing process once I was well into my own. So for the last couple of years, it started coming together more and more. But circumstances in my family and other projects that I was doing kept sort of standing in the way of creating what I wanted to create. So finally this year, and actually right before the new year, I recently launched my healing practice. It's called Awakening Soul Fire. And I've stepped out once again to be a channel for this healing, but with so much more clarity and focus than ever before. So that makes me super happy. And
I love the name Soul Fire, Awakening Soul Fire. It's beautiful. So perfect for you. It's the embodiment
of the gift I would love to give to other people, or to help. I want to help other people find their soul fire. It's a very heart-centered practice, and so love and gratitude is the deepest, richest resource that we all have to tap into for healing. But with that, I do, of course, I do Reiki and some crystal therapy and shamanic energy healing techniques, and just share my love and knowledge of a holistic diet and lifestyle. Because I've learned so much just on that alone over the last 5 years through my own research. So why not share it?
Absolutely.
And also offer remote healing, because I don't care if you're here with me in Tennessee or way down in Antarctica. Yeah, you know as well as I do when you get down to quantum entanglement. I don't know if anybody studies that kind of stuff, but
I do.
It's just as effective.
Oh, yeah. On a previous interview, I was telling someone the story about someone in the Facebook group, and I totally forgot who it is now, was offering a distance healing, and they said, just put your name below. And I did. And I totally, in the comments, if you want to be part of this. And I did. And I totally forgot about it, and cut to later that night or something. I was on my couch and I was talking to my cousin, and suddenly I just start feeling these waves of energy coming through me. And I just started feeling really good. And she looked at me, she's like, what's going on with you? I was like, I don't know. I just feel really good right now. And the next day I was just looking at the Facebook group, and on that same post, the person was like, okay, I offered it. I sent it out. And I was like, wait, what time did you do this? And they were like, 9 o'clock. And I was like, and so I was saying in the last interview, I told this exact same story, but definitely, absolutely is a thing and works. And it's wild.
As mentioned, the last couple of years I've spent learning about shamanic energy medicine, and I've got to give a shout out to my teacher, Dr. Rachel Mann. She is based out of Charlottesville, Virginia, and she's just fabulous, and she encourages me so much, and she's been such an example along the way. So I just wanted to.
Absolutely. What can you give a little description of shamanic energy medicine? What is that specifically? What's the difference between that and Reiki, for example?
Well, with shamanic energy healing, there's different parts to it. So it kind of gets a little bit more complicated. But basically, what we're doing is helping you rewrite your own story. So if you have feelings of lack or fear or being held back in life, or you just want to experience more joy, or you have a goal that you want to manifest into your life, those are the levels at which I work, at least for right now. Because I'm just now in the last stages finishing up my training, and have that done in a few months. So there's a lot that can be done with shamanic energy medicine, but that's the bare bones of it. So essentially what would happen in a session, and you can find all of this on my website too, so I'll give you that. It's actually awakeningsoulfire.com. But so
perfect.
What happens is we do an illumination of the light body, which basically just means, moving heavy energy out of your aura, your auric field, We can get a lot of attachments and a lot of heaviness, and we can just be around certain people that might kind of throw some shade on us, and quite literally it kind of gets stuck there. And so we're walking around with some of this heavy energy, and it really starts affecting the flow of our chakras, the flow of our own energy. And so just like with any other energy healing method, if you are experiencing a blockage in that flow of energy, it needs to be removed. It needs to be removed and dislodged, basically, so that the energy can start flowing freely again. So that's the first part. And the elimination process can be done just on its own. And a lot of times I'll do that before I do a full session, just because there's so much of it. Sometimes there can be a whole lot of that heavy energy to move. The second part of the healing is that we do a journey. So I can do it either way. I have a lot of people that want me to lead them through it, or most usually I just do it on my own, but I let them hear me, because I do a lot of chanting and hear me doing all kinds of things, during this part, because I have to alter my state of consciousness to journey down into your lower world or your subconscious. And what I do when I'm there is whatever problem that your issue you have brought, we work towards extracting that, whatever that injury or that wound is, or whatever is keeping you back, holding you back. And then we find gifts that are presented to us by any number of things. It could be your spirit guides, it could be your higher self, you name it, wherever it could come from, an ancestor. So soul parts can be called back, and that gets into a whole can of worms that, like I said, if you want to go on my website, I talk a little bit more about. But so basically what we're doing is we're bringing back objects and animal allies and any number of things that can help you on this journey to change this story that you've had and create a bigger story for your life that's going to help you reach your highest destiny in life. So that's kind of what that's all about.
Wow. I love that. I love the part about finding the gifts, like pulling out the gifts.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And for me, it has done wonders. I'm a testament to this work myself. I'm not just learning how to do it. I've been doing the healing work too, for me. And there have been so many things that have allowed me to move forward with my life. And my weight is one thing. I struggled with that my whole life. Over the last couple of years, I've lost 57 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off. And it just, that's just one small thing. It could be any dozen of other problems, and you don't ever really know where those things go back. And so the shaman's job is to chase that back into your life and see where it was born, so to speak, and to help unravel that thread so that you can, extract that wound and create this new story. And, then you've got a powerful team that comes back to aid and assist you, in this new journey and this new path you're going to have for your life. And just like with any other energy healing, it requires work on your part too. You kind of have to do your part when it's over, and make the commitment to, not go back and get stuck in that eddy of trauma, my teacher calls them. So it's lovely.
Wow, I love that. I love the idea of changing your story, because at any level, even if it's just, a conscious level on a daily basis, that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to change the story.
Oh, absolutely.
That's really wonderful. So if people want to get in touch with you for any of those types of sessions, I know you just mentioned your website. Would they just go to your website, and can they book a session there, or how can they? Okay.
Yeah, you can actually book a session online. You can find me at www.awakeningsoulfire.com. I have a Facebook page as well. You could always send me a message through that. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter under the same name, Awakening Soulfire. If you're looking to learn Reiki, I actually teach all 3 levels of Reiki. I've got one class scheduled coming up. I'm hoping that might be something I'll be able to do online in the future, but right now it's just locally where I live. And speaking of which, I actually do practice locally in Johnson City at Generations Emporium on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But yeah, as far as distance healing, if you don't want to go the route of booking online, you could always just send me a quick message or call me. My number's up there on the website. And yeah, we'll get you set up.
Great. So going back to Positive Head, since that's why we're talking. So what influence has this podcast had on your life? I know you said you listen every night. How has it affected you?
I think the biggest thing for me, Positive Head has been such a blessing because when I found it, it's like you said, there was something that night, and always inevitably with me, I'm always on the research for something, on the look for something. And so whatever it was I was looking for, I found through that podcast. And so it's always when I need now whenever I turn to it, it's always when I need a renewed source of inspiration or to be uplifted, raise my vibe. Positive Head, I don't even know where to start. It's like it basically just has what my soul is looking for. It is soul food in every way. I could be having a really bad day, and I listen to a podcast, and inevitably there's always something spot on that flips the switch. It gets me refocused on my task for that day, or it helps me realign with my purpose altogether. And for me, it's just a reminder. The podcasts are a huge reminder that we're all part of this great infinite consciousness. And sometimes though, I wish there were like a searchable database for topics so that I could go in there and okay, what does Brandon have to say? Who did he have on that I could listen to for inspiration, or who might have an answer to this quandary I'm in? Yeah. But I got to tell you too that the little ditty at the beginning, I love the opening intro. I love you so much. It's the best.
Yeah, Sean Wasabi's song. Yeah. Great.
I go around singing it all the time. My husband will say, "Oh, thanks, you've got that stuck in my head now."
Yeah, it is super catchy. I love that song too. Yes, that was a perfect choice by Brandon. I love that update to the theme song. So
Me too.
I think everyone listening to this could probably agree.
I hope he never changes it.
Yeah. No, it's so cute, so catchy, and it's great that we're all just kind of walking around in our own lives, singing it, in our heads, staying connected. Well, so how would you, speaking of the community, how would you like to see the Positive Head community expand? Are there any ideas that you'd like to throw out into the collective?
Well, when I think of, we call it lovingly the P-Head community, I get this vision, of this living, breathing heart matrix. Ooh. And it's just like pumping direct connection to higher consciousness out into the world. And I think there's been some discussion about Facebook communities or groups for different regions and different areas, which I think is a fabulous idea as we grow and expand. And I also think, just connection and collaboration is what it's all about. And I think you guys are beginning to do it already. I mean, by letting members of the P-Head tribe, come on this show and let them tell their stories and talk about their triumphs and their creative projects. And, it gives us an opportunity to acknowledge and promote and encourage each other. And that's great because we all have something unique and different to offer to this beautiful heart matrix, that's spreading the good message that love and gratitude are the most powerful forces in existence, and creating a stream of information and wisdom and insight for people, on how to incorporate these things into their daily lives. And I think that's an invaluable asset to the world, this whole world right now. It's so needed. And so I really believe Positive Head has already, and that it'll continue to affect positive change on this planet. I really do.
I do as well. And that was so beautifully said. And I think many of us will probably resonate with that. I think, again, that is why we wanted to do this. That's why we wanted to bring listeners on, because it's just becoming so apparent every day. It hits me harder and harder. I'm like, wow. And every time I talk to one of you, I told Brandon the other day, I was like, thank you so much for letting me do this, because I'm having the best time ever, because it's just proving to me over and over again what I already believed, which is that there is so much value within every single listener. There's so much value that Brandon's putting out, and there's so much value within each listener, each little fractal of this project and this community.
I love that. Each little fractal.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, that's so beautifully said. So what is one thing that you think would benefit every P-head to know or understand as they continue on their own journey?
Oh, wow. I would say learn to love yourself and love people, Spread kindness. Spread kindness as much and as often as you can, because just doing so, it will automatically bring more for you to be grateful for in your own life. It spreads like ripple waves, and not to sound, like I'm on a soapbox, but it does. It will drive out darkness. It breaks down walls. It lifts the broken. Just that simple act of kindness is an act of love. And, loving you can sometimes mean saying a compassionate no to things, people, and situations and circumstances. So there's equally that side of the equation too. But we're all unique expressions of the source, but we will all return to source. So when you show love and compassion and kindness to others, you're doing it for yourself, because we are all one.
Yep. Something just popped into my head when you said that, because it's and I've talked about this with a couple of other people on their interviews, where it's we're all so sensitive. Mm-hmm. And I think that because of that, we all kind of have some degree, or maybe some of us more than others, but I think for the most part, I would say there's a trend with highly sensitive people of kind of trying to protect ourselves from other people, because we're so sensitive, we're picking up on so many emotions, and it feels overwhelming. And I know that I'm someone who, I'm an only child. I remember being terrified to have friends over when I was younger. My mom would make me invite friends over, and it just kind of set up this weird kind of social thing for me where I would kind of be scared of people, and it took me a long time to come out of my shell. And even still, I'm so outgoing now, but even still to this day, I have times where I'm I might want to have a tendency to kind of hide and protect myself again. And it's so ironic, because on the flip side, what I've realized about happiness and joy is that where I get all of my joy from is connecting with other people. We were just talking about, I said, just connecting with you listeners, or walking around my city and being able to just connect with strangers, smiling at them, having pleasant conversations. It's so interesting to me how this group of people is kind of the most likely to maybe barricade themselves from others, or protect against others, but we're also the most likely to find joy in other people once we come out of that,
One of my cousins, who actually, she lives down in Nashville, I don't know if she started it or if she was just one of the founding quote unquote members of it, but they started going downtown and just holding up these signs that said free hugs.
Yes, I've heard of
that.
this.
It's just what better way to spread love than to just give a total stranger a hug out of the blue and say, hey, you need a hug today? Here you go.
Yes, because people don't get enough hugs too, at all. I love that. And I think there's going to be so much more of that as time goes on. So much more people coming out, and opening themselves to others. And I think that's just wonderful. Well, so this is my last question for you. Do you have an intention for 2018?
Well, it's kind of funny you ask, because usually that whole thing is kind of the New Year, new me, or New Year, same me kind of joke. Every year.
Yeah.
But this year, or should I say last year, I guess probably mid-December, my intention for New Year's, it sort of began early, and it was completely unintentional.
Unintentional intention.
Yes, exactly. So 2017 was probably the most difficult year for me since the hospitalization and illness that I had 5 years ago, which says a lot. In some ways, it was worse, just because I had some major family drama going on, and my brother Patrick has cerebral palsy. He was hospitalized because he had a pretty severe illness, and that happened right after my parents split in October of 2016. So I was getting really down, and just dancing with depression and sashaying with anxiety, and I didn't really. I knew what I needed to do. We all know what we need to do to fix it. It's just fixing it. So I knew I had to get into some serious meditation, and return to that state of grace, and the dazzling state of grace. and I realized that that's different for everyone. But since I began my apprenticeship with shamanic healing and taking on this heart-centered approach, it has new meaning for me, because it's the entryway back into that grace, back into that it's never the same as it was, during the near-death experience, but I can catch a glimmer of it, that way.
Right.
It helps me get realigned. So I go into meditation, and my heart is filled with so much pain. I had a lot of tightness in my heart chakra. I could kind of feel it trying to close down. But I kept up the meditation anyway. So as I was going through and, just doing all the visualizations, I heard this whisper. And this whisper said to me, surrender to love. So I allowed it to flow through every fiber of my being. Like if somebody turned a water faucet on the top of my head, and I felt love flowing down my head and through my body and into the earth, that's exactly what happened. And so I just, as part of the meditation, extended that love out to every being in existence, even those I perceive to be my, enemies. Or people that I've had challenges with. And, I've done this meditation many times, but I had kind of gotten away from it, as we do, because of all the dramas going on. And it was just so beautiful. And I felt this beautiful shift in my own heart. And I just felt deep and revolutionary compassion for myself, for my loved ones, for the world, the cosmos, for everything. And it filled the entire universe. So I guess I would say that my 2018 intention is to surrender to love.
Ooh, I think that needs to be all of our intentions.
Yes.
Just the way you're describing it gave me goosebumps all over. Because I think, it's so true. It's like the hardest thing to do, to surrender to love. We have so much momentum going against that, and so it really is the most powerful thing if you can start to do it. And sometimes I have moments where I catch myself getting very uncomfortable with receiving different types of love. And I am like, wow, I'm really uncomfortable about this. Like, this is really interesting. So anyway, I don't know. I think I might adopt that one for a little while as well, because I think it's probably the key to everything. Surrender to love.
Up, what you just said opens up that ability to do the shadow work, That's when you can really dig into your own self and go, ooh, why is this making me uncomfortable? Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
And that gives us an opportunity to heal ourselves. And that's such a beautiful thing. And it's easy. It's easy to be in that state of love when you're around loved ones. But it's the people who challenge us. That's our real challenge, the people who we maybe find ourselves at odds with, or, just it could be a group of people, that we look at them and go, I don't approve of how you do, and I don't think this is right, or whatever that thought may be. The challenging part, I think, of surrendering to love is to get to the point where there's no one you exclude from that love. It's not the same thing as approval. It's different, two completely different things.
Right.
But that's the challenge, I think.
Yeah, it's unconditional love as opposed to conditional love. Conditional love says you do these things and then I love you. Unconditional love is just having love in general and knowing that that's nourishing you.
Absolutely.
And anything else is doing the opposite of that. So it's really like unconditional love is really something for you.
Love for the sake of nourishing others. Perfect. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Beth, this was amazing. I'm so happy we got a chance to connect. I love your story.
Thank you.
I love everything that you shared. It really touched my heart. And I really just congrats on everything. Congrats on your recovery. Congrats on your journey and everything you're doing now in your new business, Awakening Soulfire. Everybody go check that out. And, www.awakeningsoulfire.com. And if anyone wants any sessions with you or to just connect with you, they can connect with you there, as you mentioned. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alexa. And I just want to say how honored I am. I really am so honored to be a part of this great thing you guys have going on. And congratulations to you on the podcast. I really understand what you mean when you say it's just been the best to talk to all these different people, and it charges you,
Yeah, it really, really does. Well, thank you so much, and
you
journey
too.
well.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Awesome. You too. That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another P-Head Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.